Lois Howard MacKinnon.
And when and where were you born?
February the 6th, 1923, in Salisbury, North Carolina.
Tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up there.
I didn't live there long, and most of it that I can remember is from Albemarle, North Carolina. And I lived there for about 3 years, and we moved around.
What were your mom and dad's names?
My mother's name was Constance Elizabeth Long Howard, and my father was Michael Lawrence Howard.
And what was your mom like?
Well, she was the boss, and what she said, we did, or we went out and got switches.
And your dad?
He would tell my mom when to spank. But he was easy to get along with and told a lot of jokes and things like that. He was very likable.
What did your dad do for a living?
He had a bakery, yeah. We had a lot of broken cakes and pies.
So I'm guessing you learned to bake when you were young.
No, we never did. My father did he brought home the broken things. So we didn't, my mother didn't have to cook cakes and pies.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
I had 2 brothers, Robert Wallace Howard and Manly Lawrence Howard.
And what were your brothers like?
Well, Manly was the oldest, and he was a lot of fun too. He had a lot of jokes. And Robert, you didn't turn your back on him. He was sneaking.
Do you have a funny story about him?
Oh, no. Well, the oldest one, Manly, I have a lot of stories about him, but...
Tell me one.
Okay, Manly had graduated from college, and the government got a hold of him and wanted him to go to Illinois, University of Illinois, to learn to make atomic bombs. And he was one of the 10 that knew how to make atomic bombs. And when he was living in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where he was working, when the war was over with, all the Secret Service men put on uniforms, and he found out that both families that lived next door were Secret Service, and they were guarding him the whole time. And one time after the war was over with, he was offered a job in a foreign country, and the Secret Service knew about it and wouldn't let him go because they were afraid they might capture him and torture him, make him tell how he made atomic bombs.
Wow.
So he was important.
There's a Krispy Kreme story.
Oh, yes. I was fishing on a dock one time. I lived at a country club. And this man walked out on the dock, and we were talking. After talking about 10 or 15 minutes, he said, well, what was your name before you were married? I said, Howard. And he asked me, is your father named Mike Howard? And I said, yes. Was he a baker? And I said, yes. And he said, you know, he taught me how to make donuts. And he went out and started his own donut place, his Krispy Kreme Donuts. So I was shocked. And my father had never said anything about that. And I came home, and he said, I said, you know the man that makes the Krispy Kreme donuts? And he said, yes. He worked for me.
Well, I have to thank your father when the Hot Now sign is on.
Yes, yeah, it was. But it was amazing on a fishing dock.
Did you have a family tradition or something growing up that was important to your family?
Well, I always loved, in summertime, when I was a little child, my mother's sisters and we would get together, and go to a mountain and for a family reunion, and we would cover the climb up the mountains, and all the kids, they knew all about it. And that kept on until, to this day, we have a family reunion every summer. And it would be at least 25 people in the house with us.
What were Christmases like?
Oh, well, it was quiet, because everybody in the family were at their own homes. So, but we didn't have big presents when we were a little girl. When I was a little girl, I think one Christmas I got a broom, a little kid's broom, and one year I got a baby carriage. And we got one present, that's all.
Did you have a favorite toy when you were growing up? Something that was
No, we had a lot of animals. We had a pet rabbit and a dog, and they were together too. But
describe a person or situation from your childhood that was important to you, had a profound effect on your life.
Well, I wasn't so young then, but when I was at college, my uncle was a math professor, head of the department, and he, and also a teacher at Sunday school. So he used to give us a lot of advice. And to become a head of the department, he had to have a master's degree. So after he had been teaching for so many years, he went back to Duke to get his master's degree, and one of the books that he studied was one that he had written. So.
You seem to know a lot of important people.
Well, they're part of my family. That's important.
So where did you go to high school?
Thomasville, North Carolina. And another thing, they only had 11 grades when I went there. So it was, and the year that I graduated, they started having 12 grades then.
Do you have an important memory from high school? Something that stands out?
No, we had fun.
And what happened after high school?
I went to college, and I went where my uncle taught, and in Tennessee, East Tennessee. And and I was taking psychology class one time, and the teacher was talking about different students he had been teaching, and one of them, I didn't know it was my brother, and he said there was someone that had come to that college and had the highest IQ that had been recorded there, and but he wouldn't graduate. He kept changing his major, and the reason why, it was a teacher's college then, and the following year, or 2 years, it was going to be a state college, and he didn't want to graduate from a teacher's college, so he kept going, so he could graduate from state college.
So what was
That's the one, Manly.
Oh, Manly.
Yeah.
So what was your major?
Math, and I wanted to be a CPA.
And
So
what did you end up doing?
Getting married. No, I went to college 3 years, and this is during the war, and the government came by to recruit people to go to a school for how to do things for the government and stuff. So and we were going to get paid, and all our expenses paid and everything. And I gave up at the end of the 3rd year. I should have stayed. Because I didn't go back. So I only one in my whole family that did not go finish college. So.
But that was a big deal. You even went back then,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
For ladies, at least.
Oh, yes. My mother, all of her sisters all graduated from college. There was some man that had money, and they gave, I don't know, member of the family or where it was, where they got it, but they all went to college. And that was a lot for them.
Well, tell me about the love of your life.
Well, the love of my life was my husband, but the love of my growing up is have children, and when they graduated from college, that was it. That was the love of my life.
Tell me how you met your husband. How did you meet him?
In New York City. I was secretary to the treasurer at Radio City Music Hall. And the cashier in the booth in the subway, was a subway station there. She had to go to lunch. So I went down there and took her place while she went to lunch. And my husband was a policeman then, and he was going to college. And so that's how we started talking. And
what was your husband's name?
Paul James MacKinnon.
What stood out?
His nickname was PJ.
What stood out about PJ? What attracted you to him?
Well, he was a lawyer too at the time. He was still studying to be a lawyer, and so we was talking about going to school, going to college, and that's how we started. And he went to change his uniform, so he dropped me off at the bar near where he had to change his clothes. And he said, what would you like to drink? And I didn't know, I didn't want a drinker. So I started to say Coke. And then he said, what kind of cocktail would you like to have? And I said, Southern Comfort. That's the only thing I knew. Southern Comfort and Coke. And he said, you were mixed? And I said, no, separate. So you know then, I'm not a drinker. I wasn't a drinker then.
Tell me about your wedding.
Well, we were married at the office. We didn't have this was during the war. You didn't have weddings then. So got married at the marriage.
The war back then was way different than it is now. What was it like growing up during World War II?
Oh, well, I remember when we got our first radio, and there's no TVs, so our radio was a big, round, big piece of furniture then. And so we just...
What was your first car?
I don't know, I guess it was a Ford, but we were going for a ride. This is when I was about 4 years old. I can just barely remember it. And it started raining, and we stopped the car and got the windows out of the trunk and hooked them on. That's how they had windows in. And you had to crank the car in the front to turn it on. And that was up-to-date car. It wasn't an old one.
Do you remember your first TV?
Yes, it was a black and a white one. And it's 63 years ago. He was a baby, my second son. So, but we didn't have too many programs, and it didn't go on all night.
Did you have a favorite program, though, that everybody stopped everything to sit and watch?
No, I didn't. I was busy having babies. I had 3 in 4 years and 2 months, so.
Tell me about them.
Well, they all turned out to be good and well-educated. And I have no complaints.
What are their names?
The first one was Michael Albert McKinnon. Second was Robert Franklin McKinnon, and William Thomas McKinnon. And then I had a daughter, Karen Ann. And we couldn't decide what name to name the girl. We knew it was a girl then. And I was reading a book to the kids in school, in the car, and the girl's name was Karen Ann, and I said, oh, that's pretty. We'll name her Karen Ann. We all decided in the car then that we would name her Karen Ann.
Tell me a fun story about Mike growing up. What was he like?
Well, I tell you, I was a little smarter than he was, because if he, when he was 13, 14 years old, and he sometimes they would try a cigarette, and since I didn't smoke, all I had to do is kind of touch him, and then I smelled my hand, and I knew he was in trouble. So.
And then the next son?
Bob. Well, they all played baseball and handball in front of the house, and they would behave, because if they didn't, they would have to not play, and we didn't have air conditioning then, and the windows were open, and they would have to stay inside and practice the piano while the others were playing. And they behaved. After the first time they missed playing.
And the youngest son?
Bill. He couldn't keep up with the other two, so I would. Who's going to listen to this? Just the family? Just the family?
Whomever.
Okay.
I'll give it to
He wouldn't change his clothes fast enough, so after school. And he would come out, and when they would get dressed, he would come out, sometimes still had his white shirt on or whatever. And so I warned him 2 times. I said, the next time you come out and you hadn't changed your clothes, I'm going to take your clothes off right here in front of, outside, and spank you. Well, it happened one more time. But that's all, just that one more time.
Do you have a funny story about Karen?
No. She had a hard time keeping up with the 3 boys. It was 4.5 years difference between the youngest boy. So, but she loved him. She would ride bikes. If they were riding a bike, she had to too, and she was only about 3 or 4 years old riding a bike without training wheels, because she had to keep up with the brothers. She turned out to be the smartest one.
What is your happiest or proudest moment in life?
When I got all my kids educated, I guess that was the proudest.
Do you have a faith or belief that's been important to you in life?
Well, I was Lutheran, and we lived on the country club, and on Tuesday the preacher could play golf free, so every Tuesday I played golf with the preacher.
How is your golf game?
Well, it was pretty good until I hurt my back, and then I had to stop. Yeah, I had a son that was very good, and he used to teach me.
Did you have any other hobbies that you like to do?
Play bridge. I learned to play bridge, and in 2 years I was a life master in a duplicate bridge tournament. And I traveled 3 countries playing bridge. And while I hurt my back and I couldn't play golf anymore, and everybody else was playing golf, so I had to take up some hobby, and I played bridge.
I've never heard of a life master. What is that?
Well, you have to play in tournaments and get so many red points, so many black points, and it's hard. I have a cousin that took her years to become a life master, and then her husband, who's an engineer, never became a life master, and they used to travel all over to trying to accomplish that. Couldn't.
Is there anything, if anything, you would do differently in your life?
No, I think I had a very easygoing, because I could control it by keeping the men from playing, so it was very easy raising them.
Do you have a funny joke or story that you always love telling people? It's like your story that you tell.
Well, my father was a storyteller, and he had someone come in to visit him one time, and he said, "You see those cows out there? Half of them are lying down, half are standing up, or something or the other." And he said, "You know why they're lying down? I started the joke wrong. They would tell." They would. Some cows knew how to tell time, and some didn't. Something, I don't know. I've forgotten it now. No, I don't know any funny jokes.
There you go.
A good thing my husband's not here then.
Yes. Who did you date in World War II?
Okay, Alan Greenspan. I went with him for about 6 months when I was, and then I had 3 roommates, and when one would go out for a date, we all went together. So one of them worked for the Department of Interior. War Department, and she was kind of successful in secretary. And the 4 navigators and pilots came in to interview her boss, and anyway, she got a date for the 4 of us, and I dated one of the pilots that dropped the atomic bomb in Japan.
The Enola Gay or whatever? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. You have this atomic bomb connection.
Oh, yeah. That's right, I did. I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm. Alan Greenspan, what was he like dating him?
Oh, he wasn't a good dancer. But we would go out, back in those days, but when we dated, we went to a kind of like a nightclub. It's not like a nightclub now, but for supper, and they had a little orchestra, and they would dance and things like that. But we went out to supper with a group. But he was stationed in Washington, but his camp was where he slept. It was in Arlington, Virginia. He was in the service.
Did you happen to have like a song that has always been your favorite song, either with you and your husband, or just you, period?
No song.
No?
No.
Okay.
But my husband was a good dancer. He was.
What kind of dancing did he do?
Well, he could do the Charleston, but I couldn't do it. See, back in those. But he was a good dancer.
What'd you love about your husband?
Oh, he loved me. No, he was very nice. He was a lawyer. And after he got out of the service, you have the GI Bill that you go to, and he went back to school and got his Master's of Law, which very few lawyers ever do that. But he wanted to take a chance, the advantage of it.
And what branch of service did he serve in?
He guarded the president. He was within 5 or 6 feet of him lots of times.
Which president?
Roosevelt. And when Roosevelt died, then he was going into Secret Service, and then the war was over with.
Did he ever tell you stories later on, like, after
yes,
he was done with his job, like who was weird?
When they were having dinner together, Roosevelt's family, well, he was just outside, and he saw Roosevelt's hand go on his girlfriend's knee, once in a while, but that's all. No father.
Talk as if you were, or if you could say anything to your kids that might watch this video later. What would you want to leave them?
I don't know.
Any words of advice, something you'd want to say to your kids?
No, they give me advice now.
Great-great-grandchildren.
They what?
Your great-great-great-grandchildren.
Oh my. No, I don't know. Listen to the parents, honor their mother and father. You'll get, everything will be all right then, I think. Yeah.